Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Andrew Yang and the Mandalorian and Andrew Yang's Mandalorian policies. All right. So yesterday, on Tuesday, Disney Plus dropped, right? November 12th. Now, this is incredibly important for Andrew Yang, and the reason why is it is quite likely that Andrew Yang's 2020 to 2024 presidency, that period of his presidency, I'm sure he'll get a second term as well, but it's going to be shaped by the streaming boom, right? So, one, Andrew Yang immediately is going to be tasked with helping make the streaming wars into the streaming boom, right? There's going to be a huge amount of competition. The companies that are involved in this, HBO, Disney, Netflix, all these streaming services, Peacock, CBS. There's a lot of companies with major streaming services. They are all going to be competing vigorously for the best content, right? They're all going to want the good stuff on their platform, right? Well, Disney came out with its new platform, and it was really fascinating because I have a very mixed. I'll explain my experience with Disney Plus, our family's experience with Disney Plus. So we signed up for a deal probably about a month ago, and we got 3 years of Disney Plus for $140, which was a really good deal for us because we were already Hulu subscribers, and I think we get a discount, or our whole Hulu package is included, so we're actually paying less money for more content. It was a fantastic deal for us. So we signed up. The sign-up experience was horrible. And then yesterday, my whole family was excited. We're like, okay, Disney Plus, man, we're going to get it. Let's see what's on it. Let's load it up. So we did. We loaded it on 3 platforms. I loaded it onto a Chromebook, I loaded it onto a PlayStation 4, and I loaded it onto my Pixel 3a, my phone, right? It loaded perfectly, no problems. I had no login issues. We were able to load the application. We were able to log in with the applications. No problem at all. The only thing we had a problem with was we watched The Mandalorian first. I was super hyped about this. I actually asked my family, I'm like, what do you guys want to watch first? And they're like, I don't know, I'm still thinking. I'm like, okay, you had your opportunity. I'm watching The Mandalorian, right? So I gave them the opportunity for somebody to watch something else first. But when nobody had anything compelling that they were like, oh, I really want to watch this now, I did want to watch The Mandalorian now. And so I watched it. I watched it twice, right? But just so you're aware, when I watched it, 1, it buffered twice. And then 2, I went to turn on the subtitles for The Mandalorian. And I just hit the back button, and I had to re-enter The Mandalorian and start it again, right? And Disney Plus could not do that, right? It literally, we backed out, we hit play to start the video again, and it would not play. So I had to watch like 15 minutes of Star Wars and then go back 15 minutes later to get The Mandalorian to load, right? Now, none of that is a big, huge problem. I know it's launch day, right? But I kind of like, I'm a big Netflix fan, and so I really have mixed feelings. I don't know if I want Disney to succeed too much on this, only in that I really like Netflix, and I don't want them to go away, and I really think Disney could be a huge threat to Netflix, right? And so, basically, that's one thing I was thinking about is like, I'm like, hey, how are we going to handle this? Is this going to be a good thing? And overall, you have this Disney issue, and when it buffered and when it literally couldn't even just back out of the video, go into the video and hit play, like functionality that Netflix has down and had down for 5 years. I'm like, welcome to the big leagues, Disney. Like what Netflix does takes a lot of hard work. Can't just roll in here and pretend you can do the same, because you can't, right? And I think a lot of other people had issues, right? So, 1, streaming isn't easy. There's a lot of work that goes behind it, so forth, right? All right, so I watched The Mandalorian. It blew me away. I could not believe how good it was. It was incredible. By the way, this content contains spoilers for The Mandalorian. All right, it was amazing, right? So, it was incredibly good. It was The Mandalorian as a bounty hunter. It was very, very Star Wars, and it was like very Edge of the Empire Star Wars. It was like gritty, periphery, patina Star Wars, like, just like old school Episode 4 Star Wars. And, okay, let's get into it, man. All right, it is my opinion that Mandalorian is the first instance of Ziz. Z-I-Z-Z, right? Now, Ziz is a real word, okay? It is, Ziz means a short sleep, okay? I, Scott Garibay, am now reappropriating the word Ziz, all right? And what it means now is to walk woke back, all right? Ziz, Z-I-Z-Z. Now, and it really means to successfully walk woke back. And I think that's what The Mandalorian is. The Mandalorian is the first instance of a woke walk back being done successfully, okay? Now, one, woke is a special thing, right? We're Democrats, right? We all love woke, right? We are woke. We define woke, right? We carry the banner of woke, right? Let's not pretend it any other way, right? Like, woke is blue. Woke is not red, period, all right? All right, so one, I consider myself woke, right? I voted for Obama twice, right? I am trying always to have inclusive language, right? I understand the value of woke, right? There's no two ways about it. I would, that's my proposition, right? Anybody who wants can come at me and question that. I'm more than willing to hear you out, right? Get at me in the comments. All right, so I believe that, so I see the value of woke, right? But we are in a day now, right, where we are seeing a situation where sometimes we overshoot with woke, right? And I think we may have arrived there with Star Wars, right? Now, Star Wars, there's a huge conversation in the Star Wars community. Is Star Wars too woke? And so one, I really question the narrative that Star Wars was ever unwoke, right? I really feel that Star Wars was pretty darn woke from day one, right? Like, there was some really seriously woke content within Star Wars Episode 4, right? And that only increased with Episode 5, 6. And I think Star Wars has increased in woke every day. However, there are a lot of people who are like, hey, I don't really like woke. And when we hit Episode 7 and 8, there was a hockey stick growth in woke in Star Wars, right? And it upset a lot of fans, right? And a lot of fans were very upset. And their upsetness became very, very real and very impacting to the Star Wars brand, right? And to the point where Solo happened, okay? If you don't know, Solo was essentially like a month ago, Bernie had a heart attack, right? Solo was a heart attack for the Star Wars brand. Right? Solo did not even, I think it didn't even make $500 million. It made like $400 million. It's the weakest performing Star Wars movie in the history of Star Wars. It was really bad, right? It wasn't, I'm not saying it was bad from a quality perspective. It was like a whole bunch of people who were upset with the wokeness of Star Wars walked away from Star Wars. That's one of the narratives. That's one thing that some people believe, right? So here's the thing: The Mandalorian is super unwoke, right? Like it is Ziz. It is a successful walking back of woke, right? It is a space western, right? The Mandalorian uses a laser blaster, and he straight murks fools through the whole freaking show. They put an IG unit in this thing, right? If you don't know, IG-88 was the purest dope Mac bounty hunter in all of Star Wars, right? IG-88, like, they never even showed him do a single thing in Star Wars, right? He was just a super skinny robot, and like every Star Wars fan knows IG-88 is the most dangerous bounty hunter ever existed. Like, he makes Boba Fett look like strawberry shortcake, right? And it's just, there were these rumors about him, right? Like, you never even saw him like do anything, right? But IG-88 was the Mac, right? Well, they put an IGE unit, his actual designation was an IG-11, but he had all the functionality of the IG-88, which we had never seen on screen. So they put an IG-11, an IG-88 like clone on the screen, and he just went bonkers. Like, people were dropping like flies. It was nuts, right? Like, it was so cool, right? Like, and it was super unwoke, like super unwoke, right? It was Ziz. Z-I-Z-Z, Ziz, right? And a lot of people, Grace Randolph specifically, my best movie reviewer on the planet, she has talked about The Mandalorian as an apology. The Mandalorian as an apology to the Star Wars community, saying, we're sorry we put too much woke spice on your entree, right? And when you see The Mandalorian, boy, does it look like that's the case. Like, this thing is, like, there is not a hint of woke in The Mandalorian except one. The Mandalorian armorer is woke, right? So this is still Disney. They're not going to abandon woke, right? But woke is very, very specifically shoved to the back, period, right? And they're like, hey, we got a multi-billion-dollar property here. We got a lot of people are upset. We better fix this, right? And so it is interesting because now, why should there be any walkback of woke, right? Well, it is interesting, all right? Like, why should we just have woke in everything and there should be nonstop woke all the time? Well, it is. I do think there's a conversation to be had here, right? So one of my favorite sayings is, I don't know who said it, but it's a great saying, is the day after the revolution, the hardest rebel is a conservative. There you go, man, right? And what that means is when you win, you own the result, right? Like, and so this is a huge thing that is happening right now, right? So people, especially Dems, we have a lot of groups who really care about woke, and they're saying, hey, we need woke in this, right? Well, here's the thing. On many accounts, we've won, right? And we've got the woke in it, right? Now, when it comes to, now woke can go into a whole bunch of things, but when it goes into entertainment, right? One of the expectations is we're saying, hey, if you add woke to this thing, it's going to be better. It's going to be better, right? That is part of it, right? Nobody is like, hey, let's make this woke and it's going to be worse. Like, nobody wants that, right? Not even we want that, right? We're saying, hey, if the elements of woke are good, if you put the elements of woke in this, it's going to make your thing better, right? And that's supposed to be part of it, right? Now, inclusiveness is part of woke. There's other elements that are part of woke, right? But along with woke is a promise of quality, right? Like, we're not saying that the thing is going to be worse, right? And that's not supposed to be part of the narrative, right? So here's the thing, and that is one of the problems with episodes 7 and 8. That is absolutely one of the problems with 7 and 8. It's super woke, but it is not better, and that is a problem, right? And so that's one of the issues and woke culture has this issue now, right? Almost everybody who is woke and carries the banner of woke, and I feel like I'm part of that community, like we're all woke. On the Dem side, we're all woke. Just the only question is what degree, right? So this gets interesting, right? So here's the issue, right? When you're woke, you're coming from counterculture, right? You're coming in, you're like, I'm an excluded group. Now I'm on the outside, and guess what? It's frustrating being on the outside, but oh yeah, there's a little bit of cool with it, right? Like there's this element of cool, right? I'm not the man, right? Like, like I'm fighting the man. Well, guess what? Now you are the man, right? Like when you win, you own the result, right? And woke won Star Wars. Star Wars got to the point where there were no limits on the woke that was going to be in Star Wars, and woke was put into Star Wars, but Star Wars wasn't better. That's a problem. That is a problem, right? Because now, by the way, my apologies. Actually, no. The man is a term, right? It means, the person with the power, right? And it's an old ancient term, right? And we're trying to move past that. We're trying to say, hey, power is attached to all genders, right? Okay, all right. So, but that's the issue is when you're woke and you're counterculture, and then you win, you become the culture, right? And then you become the thing that gets pushed back at. And that's what The Mandalorian is, right? It is pushing back at woke culture that has won, right? That is no longer countercultural, but cultural, right? When you win, you own the result, right? You don't get to be the person standing in the corner with your arms folding, complaining that it isn't good because you're responsible for it, right? Like that's the issue, right? It's hard. You can't be an anti-authoritarian when you are the authority. And we are now struggling with that in woke culture, right? And The Mandalorian is a very successful pushback on woke, right? And we kind of had it coming because we won a lot of stuff, and not everything that we put woke on got better. Some things got worse, right? Now, it's a complicated conversation, and it's also in flight, right? Like, because Mandalorian is part of Star Wars right now, you know what I mean? And so Star Wars is now a mix of unwoke content and woke content. Now, what's this got to do with Andrew Yang? A lot, right? So one, I think one of the things that's really amazing about Andrew Yang is where he stands on woke, right? My take on Andrew Yang is that he is woke with a high tolerance for Ziz, right? And he has some very unwoke policies. He is a very woke candidate with some very unwoke policies. And he has 3 specific policies that I am now grouping as the Mandalorian policies. Let's talk about them, right? The Andrew Yang policies that are very unwoke, right? And also that are specifically a walkback of woke culture, or a pushback on woke culture. Let's get into it. All right. So I have a mnemonic for this: a human sitting on a clear engine. All right. First, humanity first. Humanity first is very Ziz. It is a walkback of woke culture. All right. It is a walkback of woke. All right. How is that? Well, I love this. I love this about Andrew Yang. So I've seen this interview 20 times, right? And you have too, right? He goes into some group who is a very specific, who's an attribute group. They're like, our special group has this special attribute. We all share this attribute. Now, Andrew Yang, what are you going to do for us with this attribute? The people who have this one attribute, what are you going to do for us, right? And it's interesting because he always tries to do this, like, he tried to do this for a long time. He's like, nothing, I don't care about your group, right? He's like, I care about humanity first. I don't want to jump in on your identity politics. It's divisive, right? Super non-woke. Like, this is a really, really unwoke answer, right? He's like, I don't care about your attribute group. I want to put in policies that help everybody. And that's exactly what the freedom dividend is. $1,000 a month for every American helps everybody, and it doesn't matter what attributes you have. It helps you regardless. The only people are kids, and they for logical reasons shouldn't get it, right? And so it's great, right? It's very, very Mandalorian, right? It's Ziz, right? What's the next one? Nuclear power. Andrew Yang you could find it right on his website. He's like, I'm pro nuclear power, man. 3 Mile Islands everywhere. He's a little different than that, right? But he's like, hey, there's been a lot of progress in nuclear power. We can set these things up more safely than we did, all right? And this will give us, and if you really are serious about helping the Earth, well, it's time to take some risks, and in a smart way, right? And so that's important. Excuse me. So and it's very Mandalorian, right? Being pro-nuclear power when you're on the Dems, that is super Mandalorian. That is IG-88 cool, right? All right, and then the last one is you have humanity sitting on a clear, geoengineering. Geoengineering. I love this. All right, so geoengineering is carbon capture. Geoengineering is like doing things to block rays of the sun from getting to the earth. It is literally hacking the earth, right? Using very, very innovative solutions to hack the planet itself, to use technology, to use methods and processes to make it so that we can control pollution, not necessarily reduce it, right? Very, very out there idea within the climate change model, but it's sitting right on his website, right? Geoengineering. Super Mandalorian, man. That's as cool as a Beskar pauldron, right? Like, it is very, very Ziz, right? And this is the key. Now, why do we need Andrew Yang to be woke and to be Ziz, right? Because woke people get Dem voters. Ziz people get Republican voters. And whoever's going to win and beat Trump needs both. And Andrew Yang is the only candidate right now who can do it in significant numbers. He's the only woke candidate with high tolerance for Ziz, and he's the only candidate that can beat Andrew Yang. And Andrew Yang is the only candidate who could beat Donald Trump. All right, all that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.